As it was written, as it was meant to be, Kyle Shanahan gets his man 4 years later than expected. Mac Jones, new backup quarterback, or is he, for the San Francisco 49ers? And what do the 49ers draft needs look like now post 2025 first wave of free agency? We're going overtime right now. What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday evening to y'all. Hope you're having a good week so far. Always love chatting it up with my guy, Jason Aponte. Little OT with BP, simulcasted on Jason Aponte's channel. You can find us on the socials at BD Peacock, at Jason Aponte 2103. And man, it's a great story because it's the gift that keeps on giving, right? I just did a little Locked On 49ers with Croc, and we went down memory lane a little bit. We have more time if we want to go down that jaunt, Jason. But the quarterback prospect that kind of everybody hated, that 49ers fans grew to hate during the 2021 NFL draft process, is now back. And it was rumored to be the guy the 49ers are going to pick at number 3 overall, Mac Jones. He was not the pick. It was Trey Lance. But it is now Mac Jones that is with the San Francisco 49ers and not Trey Lance on a 2-year backup contract worth potentially up to $11.5 million, 2 years, $7 million with 5 guaranteed is the contract for Mac Jones. And before we get your thoughts on it, I think it's fascinating that the 49ers actually tried to trade for Mac Jones previously, which I don't know if that was a story that was out there, but according to Tom Pelissero, Jason, the 49ers checked in on Mac Jones and made an offer for Mac Jones last year before the Patriots traded him to Jacksonville. But that wasn't to be. They didn't end up making that move, but they have now signed Mac Jones, who clearly Kyle Shanahan liked all along. Do you buy the idea that Mac Jones or that Trey Lance was forced onto Kyle Shanahan in the 2021 draft, Jason?
Well, first off, shout out to Fanatics for sending my Mac Jones jersey so quickly.
There we go. Yeah, that got here quick.
Yeah, really fast. I mean, all the talk about Fanatics, and all of a sudden, I just made my purchase and it was here. So, we're all in on the idea. If you believe that Kyle Shanahan was forced to take a quarterback that they pushed up to number 3 for, and the whole idea was for Kyle Shanahan to cultivate this quarterback and finally get his guy, if you think that there was anybody in the 49ers organization that would have talked him out of it, I probably have a bridge that I could sell you in Brooklyn as well, too. I don't understand where this is coming from, and you can tell that this is probably going to be a popular narrative. It's clear that Kyle Shanahan liked Mac Jones. But if Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac Jones would have been the pick. There wouldn't have been any person in this organization that would have been able to stop Kyle Shanahan from taking the guy that he wanted when the idea of moving to pick number 3 was for Kyle to get his guy. And however you feel about how it went, obviously Trey Lance is looking for employment. Mac Jones is here. Mac Jones was on the short list of guys that he was looking at. Here's what's clear. The 2 guys that he certainly didn't want, Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. It certainly feels like it came down to Trey Lance and Mac Jones. And he chose Trey Lance. But there's no way that there's anyone that's out there that understands the dynamic, the power shift, the move to 3, how this worked. John Lynch literally saying, I get out of the way. Kyle Shanahan's going to be the one who deals with the quarterbacks, and I defer to him. And you're going to tell me that he went into the room and they said, I want Mac Jones. And they said, nah, we're going to give you Trey Lance. Come on, guys. We're very much smarter than this. And I believe in you guys that you would not allow yourselves to be talked into this yourself.
If Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac Jones would have been the pick. Now, did Kyle Shanahan like Mac Jones? I fully believe that. If Trey Lance wouldn't have been available, would the 49ers have drafted Mac Jones number 3 overall? I think that's pretty probable. So there is some truth to Mac Jones being a player that Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers liked. Obviously, now they tried to trade for him, and now they have brought him in as a free agent backup quarterback to Brock Purdy. And yes, he is a backup quarterback to Brock Purdy. Don't get that twisted either. 10 times more money is about to be made by one of those quarterbacks that gets signed. Not yet signed, though. So that's kind of the thing is like, Mac Jones can start some games, and you don't want the storylines to start running away from themselves if Brock Purdy does start to hold out, because that'll be a whole other weirdness that happens during the summertime. And then if you really don't like Mac Jones, I almost feel bad for Mac Jones because people already hate him so much. And
Yeah,
like,
and
I wonder if he understands that most 49ers fans don't like
oh,
him, even though he's done nothing to them except for be somebody who people were evaluating too high in the NFL draft, which is not his fault.
if he has a Twitter account, he's very well aware.
Yeah,
And if he opened up the app, he's very well aware. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think any 49er fan disputed that Mac Jones was going to be a competent quarterback in this league and possibly someone who was a starter. However, number 3 doesn't call for that. And I think a lot of 49er fans believe that you could have had Mac Jones sitting at where you were, and that the idea isn't going up to 3 to get Mac Jones. I think the process was flawed from the beginning because the 49ers moved to 3 and said, well, let's get to work on these quarterbacks and let's start watching the film. No, that's not what that is the mark of a flawed process. When you make the move to that position, you usually wait for draft night, and it's because you've already evaluated the guy that you want. You don't move to 3 and then say, it's time to get this tape. Who has Alabama tape? Who has Ohio State tape? Who has North Dakota State tape? How do we start to look? Like, that's the flawed process. I don't think 49er fans hated Mac Jones, the prospect. They disliked the idea of them moving to 3 for someone that could have been had at that same position. And I don't think anyone believed that Mac Jones was going to be a bad quarterback. They just would have been uncomfortable taking him at number 3.
Yeah, there's no way he should have even been considered at pick number 3. And clearly the process was awful because nobody was the right pick at number 3. So moving up in the first place was your first mistake if you're the San Francisco 49ers. And then even if you're at 12, Mac Jones shouldn't have been the pick there either. And so and what's funny is the 49ers ended up their ranking obviously ended up going at number 3 with the first 2 guys already off the board. And who knows if they would have actually, I'm sure they would have taken Trevor Lawrence, number 1, if they were able to get that pick. They might have even taken, although guess what? Zach Wilson was available as well. And the 49ers didn't sign Zach Wilson. They signed Mac Jones to a 2-year contract. I think it's all about the floor. There's a higher floor there with him to just be a backup quarterback who can play football, paint my numbers, and play in the offense. I think that's why Mac Jones is the quarterback right now as a backup for the San Francisco 49ers, why they signed him and not maybe some other players that there were from that NFL draft. And obviously Justin Fields got himself a starter deal with the New York Jets, so he wasn't going to be in the cards for the San Francisco 49ers either. And obviously Robert Saleh has a little bit more insight into the personality of Zach Wilson as well, which, didn't go well over there in New York for him. But what's amazing is the 49ers, they went Trey Lance, who they took, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. They had it exactly wrong because right now, Justin Fields is the most valuable guy. Mac Jones, the second most valuable. And Trey Lance is going to be playing in the XFL or whatever it's called here in the springtime because he can't get a job, period. He couldn't even, he was he couldn't get out of number 3 for the Dallas Cowboys, which was, by the way, I feel bad for all these guys, to be honest with you. Justin Fields went to an awful situation with the Chicago Bears. I would love to have seen what that looked like with Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, even though he's probably not the most Kyle Shanahan-y type of a quarterback. I would have liked to see what the real full development of Trey Lance might have been if there was no Jimmy Garoppolo. Play your first full season, take your lumps, play your second season, not get hurt. What that might have looked like for 2 or 3 years when you're really just trying to develop that one guy. And then what it would have looked like with maybe the highest floor player and the lowest ceiling player in Mac Jones. And would it have looked that much different than it looked like with Jimmy Garoppolo and possibly not. So that's the idea. And Kyle Shanahan can coach him up. And I won't be shocked at all if Mac Jones looks the best he's looked in his NFL career, like Sam Darnold did in limited time, right? With Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers offense. But the lesson all along was the process of moving up to number 3 was the mistake for the 49ers. And whether it was Lance or it was Mac Jones or whoever, shouldn't even have been the pick at 12 if they didn't move up. And I think that is the lesson to be learned. And again, none of that is Mac Jones' fault.
Before we get into my tinfoil theory
Okay.
about the Mac Jones thing right now, anyone that ever followed me during the time of the draft knows that I was banging the table for Justin Fields. And it makes sense why Kyle Shanahan doesn't like him. Some people said it was about attitude, but I think obviously when you watch where he is as a passer, it would have driven Kyle Shanahan nuts. And I
Oh yeah.
think he knew that. That's fine, and then we have the process of, yeah, when we got out away from his pro day, we started drawing up plays for Trey Lance. I don't know how real that is, but I do find it funny that the revisionist history is now the Jets passed on Justin Fields for Zach Wilson. The 49ers passed on Mac Jones for Trey Lance. The Jets signed Justin Fields to be their starter, and the 49ers have Mac Jones as their backup. And it's kind of funny how things work. It's almost like this butterfly effect that has gone on. Again, just because I wanted Justin Fields, it doesn't stop me from realizing that it never probably would have worked here, and Kyle Shanahan would have ripped his hair out with Justin Fields. But I do find it funny that there is a little bit of a victory lap that needs to be taken with the Fields truthers, because he's the one who continues to find starting jobs. Zach Wilson is a backup. Mac Jones is a backup. Davis Mills is a backup. Trevor Lawrence is the only other one, and I think we all had him set at number 1. But I want to throw this out at you real quick.
Okay.
I fully believe Mac Jones is here to be a backup. I fully believe that the San Francisco 49ers are prioritizing getting the deal done with Brock Purdy, and Tom Pelissero went on Rich Eisen today and said just the same as I said. But I fully believe that the San Francisco 49ers have afforded themselves a safety net in case something unforeseen happens, where Brock Purdy says, you know what, I'm not playing this year. You don't want to pay me. And it goes in line with the idea of ruthless negotiation. So do I think that Mac Jones is here to take Brock Purdy's spot? No. But you would be very naive to think that Mac Jones being here isn't a safety net just in case things go left in this Brock Purdy negotiation. And they'll almost look at Brock and say, you know what? If you want to hold out this year, we'll run it with Mac. And you make your decision from there. And I hate that it had to be Brock, but they're going to take this hardline stance. And now they have somebody who they feel comfortable operating their offense with, and that Kyle Shanahan already liked. I don't think he's here for that specific reason, but you'd be naive to think that the 49ers haven't calculated all the ways that this can go and don't want to find themselves starting whoever. Brandon Allen's now in Tennessee or somebody else. They'd feel far more comfortable starting Mac Jones over many of the options that would be out there if Brock Purdy wasn't there.
Mac Jones is a much better option the 49ers have had a backup quarterback over the course of the last year or two since Brock Purdy was the backup quarterback, essentially. And yeah, I think that's part of it. I think that's why Mac Jones was such an obvious fit. Not only did Kyle Shanahan like him in the draft, it's why this was, one of the most obvious moves that happened this offseason. But the 49ers needed to find a cost-effective backup quarterback who could fit the system, who the team liked, who could be a player that could hang out here for a couple years. He's on a 2-year contract and could start games if the 49ers needed them to, and could potentially even win a game or two with the 49ers if there was a really ugly holdout. And Mac Jones across the board hits all those targets. And so that's why he's the perfect fit. And that's why he's here now as the backup quarterback for the 49ers, presumably the backup quarterback, as long as the Niners are able to get a deal done with Brock Purdy and get his butt in camp and get ready for the season. And obviously, there's injury possibilities and you need a quarterback who can play. And I think Mac Jones can at least play. The 49ers haven't had, a quarterback where you thought, man, they're going to win some games with this backup quarterback in the game. They can do that, I think, with Mac Jones. How good is Mac Jones? What is his ceiling under Kyle Shanahan? I don't know. But potentially we haven't seen his best ball yet. And Kyle Shanahan would be the type of guy to get the best ball out of Mac Jones. Mac Jones is the one thing that I'm a little bit curious about with Mac Jones as a fit as a backup quarterback is there was some personality stuff with him in New England. And is he going to be the best soldier, be like the rah, I'm here to help backup quarterback guy? Or is he going to secretly be like, I should be the starting quarterback and kind of be like the brooding, weird, attitude guy? That's the one question I have about Mac Jones, because you have to be a pretty selfless player and your number one job as the backup quarterback is to hold the clipboard, is to help the starting quarterback get ready to run the scout team. And you have to be all in on that. Is Mac Jones going to be that guy? That'd be the only question I would have on Mac Jones, because there was some bad reports about personality stuff with him in New England, which I think led to his early exit.
I think he's learned, and I think that he realizes the opportunity. If we're going off of recent history, look at what being the backup for for Sam Darnold, what it's done. I think that's what he's trying to keep his career about. And I think if there's anywhere for a quarterback to succeed, it would be here. If he gets his chance, he would have to shine. I wouldn't really worry about that right now. I really don't think that he's in a position to act like that. You're the backup to Trevor Lawrence. Now you're the backup to Brock Purdy, but you're a backup in a place where you can build your reputation back up. And now Sam Darnold is getting paid starter money to play for the Seattle Seahawks after the year that he put up in Minnesota. Just goes to show what good coaching can do for you. So I really don't worry about that as much, especially with Mac. I think he's just going to wait, bide his time. But I'll tell you this, if he does get his opportunity, it's gonna start to get louder and louder if he plays well about, how can you bench him? Like look at what he's doing. And again, I may not be a proponent of that. I would have to watch and evaluate in that way and see how it goes. But yeah, I think when Matt gets his shot, he's definitely treating it like this is my audition to stay in the starter conversation in the NFL. And he would be silly if he kicked and screamed or acted weird. I don't think you'd see that.
Yeah, and I think most fans look at it as like, okay, what does Mac Jones bring to the 49ers? But if you're Mac Jones, what better backup situation is there for you than to get into the Shanahan-McVay ecosystem? And I think that's really important for him for the rest of his career, because he probably does view himself as someone who could be, rehabilitated back into a starter potentially in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And so, Mac Jones, very interesting one there. And I wonder what the sentiment is, because I think everyone was mad. I was talking about, it's like, it's going to happen, guys. Get ready. Mac Jones is going to be signed by the 49ers. People are like, no way. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. No way. Everyone hates Mac Jones. So now I wonder what the vibe is out there from 49ers fans, because I think it's people are pretty reluctant to buy in on Mac Jones at this point, because they learned to hate him in the 2021 draft. But again, he's not the number 3 overall pick right now. He's just a backup quarterback. Could be 1 year, $5 million, and he's gone.
Yeah. And just watch your back, because if you think that the 49ers are going to stop now Kyle Shanahan from drafting Curtis Rourke, I've got another thing for you as well, too. So,
they're not done. They're not done. This is a really good backup quarterback draft, too. So they're just going to develop another guy over the course of the next year or two, so that way they can get their even cheaper, younger backup quarterback once Mac Jones moves on. And the thing I love about this being a 2-year deal, the 49ers could potentially flip Mac Jones for a draft pick. If he does look good in preseason games and just hangs out in the Shanny rehab program next offseason, he might be worth draft picks. And then you develop Curtis Rourke or, who's the Notre Dame kid, or, any of these other potential, Brosmer from, where's he at? Minnesota. He's got some Jimmy G-like ability with a quick release to snap the ball off. There's a lot of really good backup quarterback prospects in this draft. So the 49ers should not stop. Day 3, add one more of those guys.
Right. And Tyler Slow's another one that's like jumping up the board from Louisville. Like everybody's like talking about him a bunch of times.
He might go in the top 50 at this point.
Yeah. And that's a starter. That's not a backup or anything like that. So it's just the shakeup with the whole quarterback situation. I think we got a super chat as well too.
We do. Here we go.
Quick. Yeah.
Nicholas. Appreciate you, Nicholas. Well, there it is. It says Peacock and Aponte, 2 of my favorites. I like the move to get Jones now. He feels a need and is capable backup. We must kill this draft. Go Niners. I mean, that's what it's all about right now. The 49ers moves, and I think that's probably my biggest take from free agency so far, Jason, is that obviously the 49ers have lost a lot of players, and they're worse now than they were before, just because they have holes to fill. But is Malik Collins going to be that hard to replace? I don't know. It shouldn't be. And if you draft a defensive tackle at 11, that guy's going to be better than Malik Collins, because he was not impactful. He's a pro. He's a starter. He played some snaps. They weren't super impactful snaps. Like Leonard Floyd was kind of the surprise one, because it was like, do you really have to let him go? But, he's he's not the dynamic player he used to be either. You pair Yetur Gross-Matos as the big end with maybe a day 2 edge rusher. And okay, now we're starting to talk about what that defensive front might look like. You have the same offense coming back, except for Aaron Banks at left guard. And to be honest with you, Ben Barch didn't look any different than Aaron Banks as far as results go. Spencer
Better, in
Burford,
my opinion.
yeah. And so a lot of people think that Ben Barch was better than Aaron Banks at left guard last year. Aaron Banks is really good in year 2 and then kind of got hurt. And so I don't know if it was because he was banged up. Clearly the league likes him, but the Niners shouldn't have given him $19 million per year. So in a vacuum, all these deals alone make sense. Charvarius Ward replaced by Renardo Green in the last draft. Deebo Samuel replaced by a first-round wide receiver and Ricky Pearsall in the last draft. Malik Mustafa replaces Talanoa Hufanga from the last draft. So the 2024 draft doing a lot of heavy lifting here, and the 2025 draft is where they're going to have to complete the deal and do more heavy lifting if they want to be a really good football team. And to me, Jason, it's all about the defensive line. But really, when you look at what the team is right now and you add another draft class and 10, 11 more picks to the mix, the 49ers aren't that different of a football team. And any of these losses alone, because if you lost a guy that was guaranteed to be healthy and the same guy, Dre Greenlaw, that is a big loss. But again, 3-year contract for what he's gone through with his Achilles, that's not a good bet, I don't think. And so every deal on its own makes total sense. It was just that they all happened so fast over the course of a day or two that is a little bit shocking and a little bit jarring, and they still have some work to do. But overall, I don't think it's this isn't a collapse of a football team. All of the really, really, really important, impactful players or really good young players that are going to be part of a retool and a rebuild, we're all stuck around.
Yeah, I'm with you. I expected almost all, many, if not all of these guys to leave. You let Aaron Banks. I mean, they weren't going to pay Aaron Banks market money, let alone that insane contract that the Green Bay Packers gave him. So we knew he was gone. Charvarius Ward talked about needing a change of scenery, and we all know that was done. With the accident, and we root for him no matter where he goes. The same thing you said, Mustafa in for Hufanga, Renardo Green in for Mooney. Like, I don't see what was the big surprise. Now, if you're talking about names that you recognize on the defensive line, if that's the issue, then that's something that's different completely, right? Because you look up and down this defensive line now, and it's Kevin Givens and Evan Anderson, and and obviously Nick Bosa, and then Yetur Gross-Matos, and then you're kind of just piecing it together with whoever, like Drake Jackson's still on his roster, right? I think a lot of people forget that too. Not that I'm betting on him, I'm just saying that he's a part of the equation, right? And then you've got those players that are under team control in one form or fashion, and I think the names itself, if you're looking at them, there's a good thing there's not a game on Sunday, because that could be really scary. But I think all of these things are going to be fixed in the draft, right? And don't discount the 49ers making those last end free agency signings, right? As a Darius Smith, a Dante Fowler, or somebody like that. The names that keep coming up, that I would like that were younger, Azeez Ojulari, and then Joshua Uche got signed by Philadelphia. And who wants to bet me $5 that all of a sudden he just won't figure it out and just start, dominating for the Eagles as well too at age 26?
Yeah.
But they're still going to address this in the draft. They'll still bring in some guys that it's not going to knock your socks off or make you, really like say, oh, wow, a difference maker. You just need bodies at this point. I agree with you 100%. The biggest holes, and I wrote an article today on NinersNation.com about it, ranking the biggest holes on this roster right now. I've got defensive line first, which I fully expect them to go ahead and check in the draft. And then I've got that linebacker spot right next to Fred Warner. That part has got to make you a little bit more nervous, because D. Winters has had issues series to series, let alone finishing an entire series. Finishing an entire season, with injury. So what happens now? Is CJ Mosley a part of that equation? I certainly think he's better than Devondre Campbell, but there's injury issues, and he's older, but he knows Robert Saleh. The 49ers are in this interesting spot of who is going to play next to Fred Warner. If I had my way, you just draft Jahad Campbell. And that'll that instantly knocks that out.
Here's the thing is, Jahad Campbell, now he's an Alabama linebacker. You look at his height, weight, speed from the combine. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. It starts to look a lot like Fred Warner. And he's a supreme athlete. He went to Alabama. They get 5 stars. At worst, you're a 4-star if you're starting at linebacker for Alabama. But man, he 6'3", 235 pounds, and runs 4.5 in the 40. And you start going down the list and you start realizing how similar he is athletically to Fred Warner. Does he have the instincts? Is he that type of a player? But man, he's an interesting guy. The question is, are you drafting him as high as 11? Because he might not be there at 43. But front seven obviously is a massive need, none more than defensive tackle. But linebacker, offensive line, you got to add one guy probably high.
Yes.
And so when I'm looking at those first three picks, 11, 43, 75, you go D tackle, D end, offensive line, and then maybe linebacker in there somewhere. I mean, Fred Warner was a third rounder. Drake Greenlaw was a fifth rounder. D Winters was a fifth rounder. That's kind of been the sweet spot for the 49ers for those positions. I probably wouldn't expect the Niners to draft a safety or a linebacker. Maybe, probably not in the first round and probably not even in the second round, right? So if I had to guess right now, if I was like, okay, I'm not even going to put names on it. You go tackle, end, offensive line, linebacker in that order. Rounds 1 through 3 with that comp. By the way, Niners got screwed out of a fourth round pick in the comp pick equation. Thought they were getting 2 comp picks in the fourth round, only got 1. So they have pick 100 at the end of round 3. They got pick 138, I believe it is, at the end of round 4, and then a couple of 7th round comp picks. So still a good haul of comp picks. And the Niners have been bad at those late 3rd round comp picks, but Brock Purdy was a comp pick too in the 7th round. So don't forget about that one.
Yeah, thank you, CJ Beathard, right? If I'm not mistaken, that's
CJ Beathard. Yeah. So they wasted a 3rd round pick and another pick to move up in the 3rd round to get CJ Beathard, but it ended up getting him the 7th pick in the 2022 NFL draft, which ended up being Brock Purdy. So it all worked out.
Yeah. I am with you about Jahad Campbell at 11 not being the move. Now, Jahad Campbell in a trade back, that's where I start to feel a little. All right, so our last episode was who's the pick at 11, and you nailed it down to 3 guys. Yeah. I'm with you on if Mason Graham is there at 11, which I don't know if he will be. Let's make sure that we say that. If he is, you run that card up. You go get Mason Graham. Like, you don't even think twice about it, right?
Yeah.
So
with Mason Graham too, the thing is he hits everything. So huge need, high motor player, good against the run, good against the pass, high character guy. He kind of just hits everything. Huge need. The biggest need on the San Francisco 49ers team right now is defensive tackle. So Mason Graham just hits everything. He might not work out like a maniac. I didn't like that he was down to 296 pounds or whatever it was at the combine. And so if he's under 300 pounds, he better run fast at the Michigan Pro Day. All eyes are going to be on the Michigan Pro Day. Will Johnson as well is a big one that really needs to run.
He's not going to participate.
Oh, that's right. He's got like a heel injury or something, right?
So he's got a hamstring injury. So that's it. My dream's dead now at this point. I mean, the only way the dream isn't dead is if he just falls because everybody's worried about his medicals. But yeah, the dream's dead at 11 for Will Johnson. So I'm out on that. I'm out on for that reason.
Didn't he say though he was still going to try to do a workout pre-draft, but it was just not going to be at the Michigan Pro Day?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, again, when I talked to Jordan Reed and he was making it seem like, yeah, it's all systems go at the pro day. And we know that the advantages of being at the pro day and the combine is you can control everything at the pro day, right? Yeah. Everything is designed to make you look good. And yet he's not going to be there because of another injury. And it's just like, you know what? I think for that reason, I have to leave, even though I think the world of the kid.
He was a little bit smaller than I thought too.
Mm-hmm.
At the combine with his weight, like arm length, I thought he'd be a little taller, a little bigger, a little longer arms, and so interesting prospect there. But again, like I would probably, the tough thing is Will Campbell. So I think Armand Membo, he knocked it out of the park at the combine. He's a clear tackle. He's the clear number 1 offensive tackle in the draft because he's a tackle. Will Campbell probably a guard, or I think he could be an all-pro center too. But here's the thing that happens. So the 2 easy picks are Mason Graham and then Armand Membo. Mm-hmm. The 49ers have had such a tough time trying to figure out who they're, who's even a draftable offensive tackle. And with Membo, he's clearly the best tackle, and you could just play him at left guard for a year, and then he jumps out and he bounces out to left tackle or whatever, right tackle eventually. So those are easy picks. But the next 2, and I know that I didn't have Will Campbell in there because I think he's a guard, and it's like, man, you can find guards later. You probably shouldn't be drafting a guard at number 11. Mm-hmm. But Walter Nolan has maybe some maturity issues, off-field stuff that have been whispers. I don't know anything specific. I don't know if it's actually real or not. I don't know if it's like sour grapes from Texas A&M because they're mad because he left. And apparently,
I think it's attitude. It's not off the field stuff. I think it's attitude. I think people are concerned with the attitude.
Right. And so if you are concerned and you're the 49ers with his attitude and Membo are gone and Mason Graham is gone, I mean, it's kind of the opposite. Like high character, you know what you're going to get in Will Campbell, and maybe he's not an offensive tackle, but man, he's got the highest floor of maybe any prospect you could be taking at that point in the draft. So does Will Campbell enter the conversation there? If Will Johnson's not going to be a guy, you can't take a wide receiver unless, man. So here's the other thing about this whole, tear down, as some people are calling it. Like right now, we just laid it out there how it's not that big of a deal. It looks worse than it actually is. But if you start trading like Brandon Ayuk or Christian McCaffrey or Trent Williams, well, now it is a complete rebuild, and that changes it all together. And we've been told by reporters, and we were basically told by John Lynch at the Combine that they're willing to listen to offers for those guys. So we're not out of the woods yet of a complete tear down. Right now, it's not quite there, but it is on the cusp.
So people didn't like your idea for trading Christian McCaffrey and trading Brock Purdy and everything yesterday on Twitter?
Sometimes, especially, it gets late at night, and I think to myself, you know what? I want to stir up some trouble on Twitter because there's a lot of people that don't have a sense of humor, and there's a lot of people that don't remember what it was like with the 2021 NFL draft and Mac Jones and all the stuff we went down memory lane talking about. And so I threw out the idea, okay, you want to reset this thing? How about this? You're going to reset it and pay Brock Purdy $50 million and have a bad team around him? That doesn't make sense. So trade Brock Purdy, get some draft picks. The Giants are hard up right now. What could you get in trade from the New York Giants? Who, like, the Giants GM doesn't care.
No,
if he doesn't get a quarterback, he's not going to be drafting in 2026 for the team anyway. So he'll give up some picks to you. If you're the 49ers, you're going to dangle a starting quarterback, clearly the best option potentially for them, especially because I think Cam Ward is going to go number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans. I think that's what we're learning from what's happening so far in the early part of the offseason. So, and look, this is not a serious thing, but it is a thing that is kind of possible. And it's just it was a fun thought experiment, especially since it was coming off the heels of the announcement of Mac Jones. So let's lean into it. Mac Jones, your starting quarterback, you trade Brock Purdy, you trade Christian McCaffrey, and you keep some pieces that you think will be around for the team in 2026, 2027, and you draft. You earn a high draft pick because you completely rebuild, and then you draft whoever. Arch Manning. I always use Arch Manning. He's played 3 games, and I've seen him play 1 time, right? But he's a Manning, and if he's fast Peyton Manning, or if he's fast Eli Manning, Eli Manning was the first pick in the NFL draft. If he's a faster version of that, I mean, slam dunk, number 1 overall pick. Now, I don't know if he's going to be good or whatever. I don't know. I'm just kind of using his name as a placeholder. Tank, it's not really a tank, but it's just you're going to lose some more games. And then you draft a superstar quarterback. That is a reset. Come on, have some guts. Nobody has the stomach to actually reset.
So I took your tweet as a humorous tweet.
Yes.
As not a serious proposal. And here's the problem. Nobody's having fun anymore on Twitter about sports at all. No. And here's the thing. I understand you guys come to us for thoughtful analysis, serious talks. You want to hear it's still fun at the end of the day. If you stop having fun talking about football, watching football, discussing football, then stop watching, talking, and discussing. Yeah. Because I'm going to get these jokes off. I do not care. I am a happy person. I am funny. I love to joke. And it just comes across. People are so strange at times. How could you even say that? It's clearly a joke. It was clearly something that was fun. But when you stop having fun with this, when this doesn't become fun anymore, it's time to find a new hobby. And I will continue as long as I'm on YouTube, as long as I'm on Twitter, as long as I write for Niners Nation, to have fun because it's still a game. I love for you guys to keep it serious because you're the reason that we have platforms and that we're able to do the things that we're able to do, and we feed our families with this. But my God, if you're not having fun, please just disconnect for a little while and find a new hobby. Because I'm going to continue to have fun. I'm going to get these jokes off, and I'm going to get my jokes off in my Mac Jones jersey. Sorry. Like, this is like, I'm never going to stop having fun with this because I'll never understand how I've been able to build something like this for my family talking about sports. So why wouldn't I have fun? If you're not having fun, then stop, please. That's the thing. And that's really where I was going with the idea because I saw far too many hateful responses to a clearly funny proposal by you.
And they're all from folks that don't really follow me and that don't
Right.
understand the cynicism and the sarcasm and everything that goes along with being a San Francisco 49ers uh, someone who covers the team. First of all, you got to have a sense of humor to cover this team. Everything that the fans have gone through, right? I feel like some of them are like brand new fans. It's like, didn't you go down this road with us in 2021? Don't you remember what it was like? We got to get our jokes off about Mac Jones. This is the time to get your jokes off, right? Like this is what it's all about. And then yeah, so you well said, 100% by you. Like this is supposed to be fun. Let's have some fun with this stuff.
Let's have some fun. And that's what we're going to do in the draft as well, too. You
Yeah.
know, that's the other thing is like people put out mocks and, you know, whatever engine you're using is going to put players wherever. What are you going to pass on a player that you know, that shouldn't be at 11 just to say this is what's realistic? Like, and then the people are like, you're an idiot for putting out that mock. What am I supposed to do with the engine that it's not my fault that Cam Ward fell to 11, like at the thing, like, what do you want me to do with the draft engine? It's randomized. I can only put together.
Can I put my soapbox about mock drafts really quick?
Go for
it. People need to understand what mock drafts are. Like, I don't need to see your mock draft where you're trying to game the simulator and you trade down 9 times and you have 300 draft picks and you have like 14 first rounders that fell to all your draft picks and you're just trying to win. Like, why do I need to see that? Like, what does that even do for anybody? The reason mock drafts exist is because it's to play with scenarios. If this happens, then what do you do? Right? That is the point of mock drafts. They were developed by NFL teams to run through scenarios, right? Like, hey, Bob, you're the Jets. Samantha, you are the Cardinals. Jerry, you're the Seahawks, and we're going to draft, and we think it's going to go like this, 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 and this. Okay, so now what do we do here? If this happens, what if this team takes this? What are we going to do here now? Because this guy's off the board. So that's what mock drafts are for. They're to play with scenarios. They're not to predict it and get it exactly right because nobody does, and teams don't draft for need like every mock draft has them drafting too. Way more teams take best player available than draft for need, even though there's a lot more need drafting than I think there used to be in a lot of cases. And the 49ers early have tended to kind of draft for need more than a lot of teams. A lot of teams still just take best player available. And so that's why it's so hard because teams don't just go straight, number one need here, here's the best player at that position. Number one need here, here's the best player at that position. And so when it comes to mock drafts, the one thing I never want to hear from fans is, are you crazy? That could never happen. The real draft is so much more insane than any mock draft you're going to see this spring. And on top of it, understand what the purpose of a mock draft is. This is to play with scenarios. If you draft an offensive tackle in round 1, what does that do to your draft strategy for the rest of the draft? That's what it's all about. And so that's all I have to say about mock drafts. But I wish people would just understand what they are and what they're for, because then I think we could utilize them and benefit from them instead of all the weird stuff that people do with mock drafts and all the way that people look at mock drafts. And when I post a mock draft, I don't need to see your mock draft as a response to it. Right? What's the context of it? It's like, okay, cool. You put some names on a list. That's fine. Like, what is the idea behind what you're doing?
Point me to the sicko that thought the Atlanta Falcons would draft Michael Penix Jr. last year.
Right. Exactly.
Point me to that sicko. Because I'll never forget being in the media room and the whole media room, which is quiet. Everybody's doing their work and a whole media room went audibly together. What was that? And there should be your answer, right? Like it's you. Who would have thought the Atlanta Falcons would pass up on an edge rusher for a quarterback after signing a quarterback to a lucrative deal? Now, does it look like it worked? For sure. That's what makes the draft so funny because 1 minute you're like, what on earth was that? And the next year you're like, well, it's kind of good that the Falcons did that because Kirk Cousins is cooked. So I think, again, the mock draft thing is a product of the engine that you're using because what am I supposed to do if Abdul Carter falls to 11 with the 49ers? Am I supposed to pass on him just because you're going to tell me it's unpredictable or that's never going to happen? It's there, so I'm going to take that. But it doesn't mean that it's something that is going to be realistic. If you want to do a realistic mock, you're probably just going to have to select for the 49ers and just think about targets from there and not do the rest of the mock, in my opinion. Like, you're just going to have to say at 11, I've got them taking this guy who could realistically be there, this guy who could be realistically be there. You can't go through the engine because the engine's going to give you all these options that you never would have thought were possible.
And I think that, to be honest with you, when I do my final mock drafts, I'm like, this is how I think it's going to go. I think I have a better idea of how things are going to go than the engine anyway. So I don't want to utilize the engine. I'll be like, look, I think these are the players that'll be there. And I think the 49ers will go here in this round, here in this round, here in this round, and don't even utilize the engine at that point. Good call from RDC in the chat, by the way. War Games. Do you remember the movie War Games? I do remember.
I do.
Those with Matthew Broderick, right?
Yeah. Matthew Broderick, not only in War Games, but had to take down Godzilla as well, too, man. The guy's busy. Like, I got to say, like, he's all over the place.
I don't know if this was one for you, but this was a big one for me when I was a kid. And I showed my son the Never Ending Story movie for the first time this weekend, which was that was a big one for us.
Hell yeah. I mean, see, me, because I'm a child, and we need to get back to, like, talking about, like, actual 49ers draft class. So this is the last part. No, we don't. But there's that Family Guy sketch of, like, Peter Griffin riding the big, I forget what his name is, the flying dog, and he's like, yeah. And he's like, you're a little too heavy, man. He's like, yeah. He goes, we're going down. Like, I don't know why. That's why I think of that. Yeah, like, that's what I think of when I think of Never Ending Story.
So when it comes to the draft, how do you see it? You're talking about Jihad Campbell. Is he there? What if it's a trade up from round 2 for Jihad Campbell? Or is there a different linebacker? How would you see it ideally right now? And we're in March, and there's some pro days, and there's still some free agent movement, some trades that could happen. But how do you see it right now? Like 11, 43, 75, maybe even pick 100. What do you see for the 49ers? How do you think you would attack this thing ideally?
If this was a perfect world, Mason Graham at 11, Landon Jackson at edge with 43. But I have a feeling, Brian, and we talked about this, if Mason Graham's not there at 11, I think the 49ers are absolutely in the business of trading back and trying to get more picks. And when you get those picks, then you'll use those picks to move back up in a different round for somebody that you really like. So for me, the only real way that the 49ers end up with Jihad Campbell is if they trade back and, they fall back a few spots and they see him there. That's that. I don't see them doing that at 11. Again, if Mason Graham's there, they're going to run the card up. If Mason Graham's not there, that's when you'll see, hey, who is it that you're coming up here to get? That's when the discussions will come with the trade up or trade back like scenario. If they trade back, then I think Jihad Campbell's a lot more feasible. But I think, again, Mason Graham at 11, if he's there, I don't know if he will be there. And if and theoretically, if he's in striking range for the 49ers and a team doesn't necessarily value him that way, then do they move up a few spots? So we have to keep all that into consideration.
RDC in the chat brings up a good point. Who's trading up and for what? And so if you try to look for trade partners, I think there's 3 scenarios that jump out to me for the 49ers to potentially trade. One, first, is the trade up. I can't see how the Carolina Panthers at 8 or the New Orleans Saints at 9 wouldn't be willing to listen to offers from the 49ers to go back a couple of picks. The 49ers have an extra 3rd round pick, an extra 4th round pick. How much would it cost to move up? Could the 49ers get up and secure Mason Graham by adding that late 3rd, pick 100? Would that be enough to just get up a couple spots? If Mason Graham's still there, pick 8 or 9, would that be worth it? Or would the 49ers get sort of like blinders for someone like Mason Graham? And because I think Armand Membo could go number 4 overall.
I think that's where I'm at.
So that's pretty high. So Niners aren't going to get that high. But Mason Graham, again, not going to knock the workout stuff out of the park. He could start to slip a little bit. Some other guys could go higher. Shamar Stewart, some other, combine superstars could go a little bit higher. Maybe a wide receiver's in there. Who knows? Feels like everyone's talking about the wide receiver slipping. I don't know. But that's kind of the other scenario. Who's going to trade up? Okay. Who's going to trade up and for what? First of all, Shedeur Sanders needs to stop slipping because he needs to go either in the first 10 picks or pick 11 and a team trade up for him at quarterback. So that's one big one. Is Shedeur Sanders, and the second quarterback needs to be gone before the 49ers are on the clock, or a team needs to like him enough that they want to trade with the 49ers to come up to pick 11. So Shedeur Sanders needs to be one of the first 11 picks in the draft. That's one huge key. And the other one I would probably say is wide receiver. if Ted McMillan is still on the board, could a team come up and draft a guy there?
What do
I
you
guess there's
think of
one more scenario. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, you never know which player a team likes, and they might want to move up a couple of spots. But usually, if it's a big trade up we've seen, it's probably going to be for a quarterback or a wide receiver. So that's why I'd put Shador Sanders and like, you know, maybe someone like Ted McMillan as the biggest keys to go in the early part of the draft. Maybe be a player a team wants to come up and get at pick number 11. And I will say the Brandon Ayuk thing is not over. I don't like how public this all is with like essentially like if you're listening to Mike Silver and Tim Colin, essentially like Jed York's like Kyle Shanahan's a big baby and we're not going to let him run roughshod over our organization anymore. And we hate the Brandon Ayuk deal. So we want to trade him and get out from under that contract. Like that's what it comes off as. Right. And so Ayuk's not going to like that. I can't see that Kyle Shanahan likes what he's hearing in the newspapers about him and the organization, right? And seeing all these players leave in free agency. So there is a little bit of weirdness there. And so could a team like the New England Patriots say, look, okay, we've got the same grade on the guy we're going to draft at 4 and the guy we would draft at 11. So could Ayuk get the 49ers up maybe as high as number 4 if they wanted to go up and get their guy there, whether it's Mason Graham or Armon Membu or whoever else?
What do you think of the idea that there's the buzz around Matthew Golden surpassing Ted McMillan? Like,
I don't buy it. First of all,
right.
I've watched the tape. I don't buy this Luther Burden falling out of the first round stuff. I don't know where it came from. And first of all, Kyle Shanahan.
That's attitude issues, they're saying.
There's nobody I'm more sure of.
That's a Shanahan receiver.
I called Ayuk as a Shanahan receiver. I called Ricky Pearsall as a Shanahan receiver pre-draft. I'm way more sure that he will love Luther Burden than I was sure he was going to love those guys, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, and Debo. It was clear the Niners were going to like Debo after the Senior Bowl. They were coaching the Senior Bowl, right? Mm-hmm. But we didn't really quite know Shanahan's hopes and dreams as much back then as we do now. He is such a Kyle Shanahan receiver, Luther Burden. And so if the 49ers traded away before the draft, trade away Brandon Ayuk, I will probably put Luther Burden in every one of my mock drafts at 11. And he's just too dynamic as an athlete, unless there's some off-field stuff I don't know about, and that is part of the thing that happens. See him work out. He threw down. He's 6 feet, 205. He's built. Yak guy. No way he gets out of the first round. I think some teams are probably just feeding some information. And I like Matthew Golden, but Ted McMillan's got star potential. His ability to track the football and go up and get it. Teams are going to love that. So I'm not buying this Ted McMillan, Luther Burden fallen stuff. And yeah.
The Luther Burden stuff is just, it's not off the field stuff. It's whispers about his effort during the season when, you know, his quarterback went down. He kind of, you know, this is again
on field stuff, but not talent. It's attitude on the field.
Right.
And,
right. And for me, I don't know how, you know, again, that's the type of stuff, again, we're not privy to, right? We don't know if he's, you know, you can see on film that he's running hard. You know, I don't see how you can see like how much he's dialing it back or how much he's checked out. Like, I don't get that, right? And I have a hard time even believing that Luther Burden doesn't slide past Miami. Like, that feels like another team, again, Shanahan adjacent. Like, Shanahan adjacent offense that looks at that and says, hey, listen, everybody's been chasing their Debo. You know, this might be the guy. You know, like, so I do think that no matter what people will say about him and in order to tank his draft stock, that people are going to be very, very high on Luther Burden and especially offenses that are Shanahan and Shanahan adjacent.
Aren't wide receivers supposed to be a little tweaked anyway? And isn't
that
like a positive? You need a guy that's like kind of a little out there and demands the football. Like, that's part of it, right?
Yeah. Like, you need delusional confidence. Like, a little bit like what you were saying about when we were talking about Mac earlier, where he's like, well, I should be the starter. I want my backup to feel like he should be the starter. I don't want you to be like, please, God, don't put me in. Like, no, like, you need to start to feel like I should be in there. Like, I'm just biding my time and waiting. The same thing with a wide receiver. Like, I'm going to make your offense go. Get me the ball because I'm a difference maker. That is exactly what you need, that confidence that borders on delusion to the point of just like, I'm that guy. Get me the ball. And you definitely want, you don't want a receiver that's like, please, God, don't throw me the football. Like, I don't, no, you want them to demand the football. Now, how they demand it, whether that becomes a distraction, something completely different. But you need that irrational confidence from all your players and wide receivers to more like to that point.
As mentioned in the chat, Tet McMillan needs to
speed up.
Yeah, he needs to test first of all, and kind of, he can't run 4.65 and be a top 10 pick or anything. But
No.
if he runs something like 4.49, 4.47, lock it in. He's a top 10 guy all day long.
And his skill set is much more like Drake London, I believe.
Yeah.
A guy who go up and get it a little bit more. Like, he can still separate, but it's still that contested catch that you're looking for. That guy who can just go up and get the football.
Ridiculous ability to go get the football. Like, he's going to be a highlight machine and a red zone weapon. And I was shocked how good he was after the catch. I didn't expect that from Tet McMillan. Now, he's not a jitterbug. He's not the type of guy where you're going to run these little whip routes out of the slot all day long. He's not a guy you're going to feed screen passes all day long necessarily. But he's definitely got some speed. That's why I think he might surprise how fast he runs his 40-yard dash, because he's got some build-up speed. He'll run away from guys. It's just not super short area quicks, and he's not necessarily routing guys up left and right. But he can get open, and it doesn't matter because he's always open, because he's got a ridiculous ability to bring down the football as good as any player I've seen in the draft in recent years. I'm all about Tet McMillan. I'm all about Luther Burden. And I like Golden too. Emeka Egbuka is the one I don't get. I know he's a high character guy and some teams might like him, but I kind of put him in the Ricky Pearsall category where, maybe he does sneak into the first round, but I just kind of see a second round guy on tape. He's, probably a floor no lower than a number 3, but a ceiling no higher than a number 2 to me. He's just kind of like average across the board, average size, average speed. He's a good player, but I'm not like fighting to go draft that guy thinking he's going to be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. So I think those 3 guys are clearly the top, and I love Tet and I love Burden. And if they start to slip, Niners, go get Burden. If he starts to slide out of the first round, I mean, he would be amazing in Kyle Shanahan's offense.
You know what it is about Egbuka, right?
What?
He went to Ohio State, and all Ohio State wide receivers are great, and he's living up the reputation.
And he played behind all the good ones.
Yeah. No, that's it's the reputation of, wait, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison. Oh yeah, this is the next one. He's on that. For me, and I love wide receivers. This is like and whether the 49ers are in the market for a wide receiver or not, this is the position that I love to watch. I am fascinated with the defensive back wide receiver battle, who can win, leverage, false steps, all those things. I feel like the real value for the wide receiver groups is going to be in the middle rounds. And the guys that I find myself really, really enjoying watching, obviously a lot of these guys are going to be out of the 49ers range. So no matter how much I like them, it's not going to happen. Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, Jack Beck. I am going to keep on saying it. Jack Beck is the guy that I feel like everyone is going to say, how on earth did you let this guy slide? And my comp isn't player-wise. It's the impact that the player had. He feels like the Puka Nacua type of, how did he fall so far, and why did you let this happen?
I was just going to say, it's going to be so annoying when the Rams draft him in the second round.
No, don't put that in the air. God, yeah, look, Rams, if you're listening, he's a bust, man. I don't think that he can really play. So I wouldn't take a chance on him if I were you.
He's kind of a beast.
He is.
He's a dude.
So in terms of jump ball, and obviously, quotes don't really mean anything. Tape is there, and it's on the tape. But at the Senior Bowl, he says, everyone thinks that, jump balls are 50-50. For me, they're 80-20. And I was like, ooh, that's that dog right there in him, man. I was like, that's something that came off naturally. It felt like after Schwartz blows you away and he's like, I'll be back, like it just felt natural. And I was like, you know what? This kid's got it, man. And that's got to be a part of scouting too, is like catchphrases. If you got a catchphrase, then we got to throw it in there.
And he was a big time recruit, right? Was it Ohio State? Where did he go? He went somewhere first.
No, Beck went to TCU. Beck went to TCU.
But didn't he go somewhere first as like a 5-star and then transferred to TCU?
I think, right? I think that's what it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I only watched him at TCU though, so I'll be honest with you. I
might have been like LSU. It was like a big time program. He was like a big time recruit. Let me know in the chat if you know where Besh.
Yeah, his brother was around like that time around in New Orleans. Let's see, but yeah, But yeah, I like Beck. Again, Jalen Noel is somebody who I comp to. Yeah, LSU, Kenny says.
There you go.
I comp Jalen Noel to a faster DJ Moore. Like I like that comp for him as well too. And I think DJ Moore is a hell of a receiver. I think
that's an all-pro player right there. A faster DJ Moore.
Faster DJ Moore just needs to put a little bit of weight on. He can get bumped off his routes a little bit, but I do think that is something that's there. The thing with Jaden Higgins is he's just such a big guy, and he's another one that can go up and get it as well too. So like, there's a lot of like, this draft isn't as top heavy with like studs like Marvin
Mhm.
Harrison and Malik Neighbors and guys that off the rip that are gonna. But the middle rounds and the middle of the pack guys, that's where you're gonna find your value at wide receiver, in my opinion.
Yeah, Jaden Higgins might even sneak into the first round with how he worked out at the combine. And
Yeah.
I put on his tape and I was like, oh, this guy's a dude. How come nobody was talking about him? Um, the dude from Stanford, Io Manor, I don't even know how to pronounce his name right. He will block the heck out of you. Kyle Shanahan's going to love that. Similarly, Pat Bryant didn't run fast. He ran like 4.6, but that just means he's going to be there later on day 3 out of Illinois. I really like him for the 49ers. Maybe a replacement eventually for Juwan Jennings, 6'2", power player. He can make catches down the field, doesn't have a lot of speed, but just never drops the football. Royals is another sort of like he's going to be one of those Debo-esque, built similarly to a running back, can run after the catch. So there's a lot of options on day 3. So that's kind of where I would attack the wide receiver position probably for the 49ers, as long as they don't go crazy and trade Brandon Ayuk before the draft.
Yeah, and then obviously the Demarcus Robinson thing, it feels like that's a guy who can immediately take snaps. He feels like a hyper Chris Conley in that way. Like,
Yeah.
He's much better in the red zone, I think. Not as fast as he used to be in Kansas City. That's fine. And then the 49ers can bring in Elijah Moore for 4.5 a year, or, just take a flyer on somebody.
They're already pretty much done because you've got Pearsall and Ayuk, and as long as Ayuk's coming back, and then you brought in the veteran in DeMarcus Robinson. You have Juwan Jennings, and then you have the 4th rounder from last year, who I'm blanking on his name right now, Jason Cowings. And so you're already 5 deep there at wide receiver. So I think you're good. I think that's 49ers telling us that they're kind of done with their wide receiver group, unless there's a big trade, and maybe you can grab a guy at day 3, but I don't think it's going to be a big part of the plan. They're basically telling us we're going to go crazy. They're going to go ham on the defensive line in the draft. I mean, I think that's really the takeaway from what we've seen early in free agency.
Can we talk about the biggest loss with the 49ers? And I just don't know how they're going to recover from this.
Long snapper.
Brian, what on earth are we going to do now? I don't understand. What is this team thinking? How could you get rid of the long snapper, man?
I don't even know what to think about the 49ers special teams. If you're getting rid of specialists, Tabor Pepper wouldn't have been the first guy I would have pointed to, but who knows? Maybe they don't like the way he covers kicks. Maybe they don't like the way he snaps the football. Maybe he needs to get the velo up. Maybe his placement is bad. I don't know. I never heard anything bad about the way he snapped the football. I think that's I think they don't like long snappers that are willing to talk smack to the real football players on the team. But I had no problem with it. I had no problem with Debo either. I don't think there was a villain in that situation. I sure as heck didn't have a problem with Tabor Pepper standing up for his guy and talking to Debo. And it showed some guts to be able to talk to a guy like Debo like that too. I loved it.
So for me, I prefer my long snappers to be anonymous.
Seen, not heard.
Anonymity. We don't need to know our long snapper. Yeah. All right.
I think how that ball comes out of the rear end. I don't need to hear from you. No. Okay. You're arm candy for the special teams long snappers.
Yeah. And they can't even touch you on the defensive line. That's a penalty. Like, I don't care. Right. I don't care. When you know the long snapper's name, it's most likely a bad thing because he's not snapping the ball well. But I don't care. Right. For instance. But let's analyze this seriously. See, I'm getting my jokes off. See, like, I'm gonna have fun with this.
Yeah.
I think the new special teams coordinator is trying to wipe the slate absolutely clean. Like, he's been given free reign to get everybody out and fix it because it's been so dire. And the 49ers have shown that they're going to allocate resources and players to special teams. It just hasn't turned into anything. They've signed career special teams players.
It's the only thing they've done.
Right.
They signed a backup quarterback, a backup wide receiver, and everything else has been special teams guys.
And the 49ers have done this before. They've done it in previous years. They just haven't gotten any return on it. So you can't say the 49ers haven't allocated resources to it because they've literally signed guys who are special teams aces, right? The idea of George Odom. They've kept Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles on this team because he's a special teams ace, right? So you can't say that. But I do think they've given this new coordinator free reign to get rid of everybody, build this thing from the ground up because it can't get any worse than it was last year.
Dylan says that Tabor Pepper talked about Pokemon too much. That's why he got cut.
That's why.
Maybe that's why he's not coming back.
I like Ariel's comment as well too. Isaiah Hodgins is an interesting wide receiver that the 49ers added. You know, I want to say
I forgot about Hodgins.
Yeah, so he put in work here with the Giants and he played very well. He's a Bay Area guy as well too. So that's a very interesting name as well too. So yeah, you know what? Fine, 49ers, you hate me, right? Like I wanted Elijah Moore on this team. I think he's a great receiver. I think he's somebody who's, but it's fine. You hate me. It's cool.
I think
You've got your guys.
He's shown in enough places that he's not that dude.
But
the tape was fun coming out of college. Some guys show you they're not that dude. Whatever reason it is, they're not wired right. They're not ready to put in the work. They're whatever. Don't want to. Whatever. I don't know what it is, but he's not the dude. So I think we can let that dream die.
All right, but when someone's your draft crush, they're your draft crush forever, and I'm going to cape, and so I'm going to throw it at the feet of Zach Wilson stinks. The Jets were awful. Now, I will say this: Elijah Moore didn't do himself any favors with his attitude in New York, but then he goes to Cleveland. Deshaun Watson's awful, and he actually kind of flashed with Jameis Winston. That's when he started to show a little bit more. Like what I watch on tape is I still see a guy who can separate. And I think that's the part. If you can get a quarterback who can get him the ball, I think you'll see a little bit of difference. So, you know what? I'm going to go down with the ship. I still think Curtis Samuel's going to break out one day too. I'm delusional. I'm so delusional because of guys that I've liked in past drafts that I can still rationalize and find ways to, a path to success for them. So I guess that's just me being naive and, and loyal to the guys that I've liked in previous drafts.
Would you be willing to give a 2-year contract worth up to $11.5 million to one of those guys like Kyle Shanahan did to his draft crush in Mac Jones?
No. $4.5 million a year for Elijah Moore. Nothing more, nothing less. If you want more, you go get it somewhere else.
No. Niners are done a wide receiver, day 3 pick, unless they trade Brandon Ayuk. That's my call right now.
This is all your fault, Brian Peacock. I swear. You're the one that's like you're smashing my dreams now at this point.
Why does everyone like Scatabo so much?
I think they like the idea of a fullback / running back, and he's a 49ers fan, and he threw up in the bowl game, and then he threw a touchdown, caught a touchdown, ran for a touchdown. It's the stuff of legends, I think. And then, the name is fun to say, Scatabo. But
they just want to quarter the market on white running backs is what it is.
Of course, 100%. Yeah. And like Peyton Hillis is not here to bother him anymore or anything like that, right? And obviously Christian McCaffrey, but the thing is I want to ask you this, and I don't know how much more time you have or whatever, too. I'm having a blast, and shout out to everybody that's here, guys. Make sure you guys like this video. That'll help us out a lot. Just put a thumbs up. If you're in here, you're watching, you're enjoying, just put a thumbs up. I think the 49ers are going to draft another running back this draft.
They should. NFL teams should draft a running back on day 3 every single year. Every single year.
Who's the guy that you would prefer?
Never in the first round, never in the second round. Day 3 every single year. That is the running back strategy, and it's the only strategy in my opinion.
Who's the guy you would prefer? That you would say, I'm okay with this?
I haven't done a lot of work on the running backs, so I can't really tell you right now. Let me take a quick peek. I know that a guy who's going to be there a little bit later, who's a good football player but didn't blow people away height, weight, speed, is Jordan James out of Oregon, and he was kind of on par with Bucky Irving. We saw what Bucky Irving did.
Yep. And he didn't kill the combine at all.
Right. And like, look, 5'9.5", 205. He ran 4.55, which is fine. He's not slow. That it's not about top speed. We already know that about running backs. So he's an interesting one. But if you want to go speed, and I haven't watched all the tape on him or anything like that. But this dude out of I don't even know how to pronounce his name right. Bashal.
Bashal, yeah. Bashal Tutin.
Bashal Tutin, there he is. I was trying to find his combine workout. Again, similar size, 5'9" and a quarter, 206 pounds. Dude ran a 4.32, 40.5-inch vertical. He can catch the football a little bit out of the backfield. He's probably one of those 4th-round guys that Kyle Shanahan's would be like, oh, yeah, I like that. I want that one-cut guy that can hit the hole and be gone like Isaac Guerrero. So, I mean, and every year there's just a million guys that you can draft. Quinshawn Judkins. I love both Ohio State guys. They're going to be gone. They're going to be drafted too high, which is unfortunate. But if one of those guys started to creep down, even pick 100, late 3rd round, ooh, that would be enticing. That would be super enticing and a much better 3rd-round pick than, a couple of other unnamed running backs the Niners drafted in the 3rd round recently. So, yeah, I mean, there's tons of options. Really good running back class. You got to get one of these guys on day 3.
My guy is Trevor Etienne. I absolutely love the skill set. He wasn't used much in Georgia. Silky smooth. I think in terms of what the issue is at times, and I don't think that's the issue with Garendo because he's a former wide receiver. They've been able to utilize him and throw the football out of the backfield to him, which is something that's really good because it keeps Kyle Shanahan in a play calling rhythm where it at least is a threat. Because if Jordan Mason's out there, sure, they might throw him the football, but I doubt it. I think for the most part, you're just waiting for him to run between the tackles or run outside. I just think Trevor Etienne fits the same skill set that, again, if you're play calling for Christian McCaffrey, you can play call the same way for Trevor Etienne. I think he's a lot more polished. I think the guy that I am comping him to in terms of impact off the bat and kind of just fell to the wayside because this is a deep running back class and there are a lot of great running backs. It's like an Alvin Kamara type. Like I think Alvin Kamara came out of almost not out of nowhere. The draft junkies knew who he was, but I think bursting onto the scene and just saying like, how did this guy fall? Like I think that's kind of what I'm seeing with Etienne. So I've got my eyes on him, man. I've been manifesting him coming to the 49ers. And if the 49ers are talking about getting younger, they are going to have to draft one of these running backs as well, too, just because, I know we all love Patrick Taylor and he's an incredible running back. You can't let that guy get out of the, obviously I'm being funny, but, you got to get younger.
Just keep drafting running backs. Don't spend on them. And, add another one post-draft and undrafted free agency. Just make sure you do some work on the lines before you start messing around with running backs in the draft. Again, Savion Williams is another interesting player.
Mm-hmm.
He's a monster. He's kind of a running back, kind of a wide receiver. He could be the next wide back. I just don't know if he has enough utility as an actual wide receiver because I don't know if he's a good wide receiver or not. But he's a freak athlete, so he might get drafted too high for my liking. But if he starts to slide down because nobody knows what to do with him, Kyle Shanahan could put him to use, although he might be a better fit for Mike McDaniel, who I think was really the architect behind the wide back.
Yeah, TCU. He played with Beck. I felt that Beck has better tape than him. He has,
for sure.
He has very bad drop issues.
He's not a good receiver. That's the problem. Right. Like you can't draft him and be like, "Oh, you're a wide receiver." You have to draft him and be like, "We're going to force the ball into your hands. Here, we're going to walk over and hand it to you, so you don't have to run a route, and so you don't have to catch it." So I don't know what to do with him. I don't like him that much because I just don't think he's a receiver. So what position is he going to play?
And I get afraid of the 49ers looking to address Deebo's departure with a Deebo Samuel-like skill set guy when the goal should just be getting wide receivers that can separate on their own and catch the football. Like let's stop treating the Deebo Samuel thing as something that you can duplicate because everyone's tried to duplicate it.
Right.
We remember Laviska Shenault. Yeah. Right. Or any wide receiver that's ever taken an end around is Deebo.
Every next Deebo Samuel was, guess what? Not Deebo Samuel. So stop trying to look for him.
So the 49ers need to look at that and say it was a marriage of perfect timing, perfect skill set, perfect scheme, and where he was in his career. And let's just get back to drafting wide receivers that can get open and catch the football. And let's throw the football and let's work on this drop back passing game.
Well, you know who the next great wide back is, right?
Oh, here we go.
It's Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, that's fine because he is a good route runner, right? And he can catch the football. A lot more reliable, I would say, than Savion Williams at this point, right? Even at this point of his career. But yeah, you can use him in that role as well, too. And that could be a way of minimizing the impact of his touches and not having him just get killed while he's running between the tackles and everything. You get him out in space. You get him on some corners that he can break tackles. He's not getting killed up front. So there's a way to get him the football efficiently while minimizing the damage on his body from the touches. And I think that's how you do it is by throwing him the football.
Do we have breaking news? Did the 49ers sign the 39-year-old long snapper, John Weeks?
Yay.
All right.
I mean,
hold on.
Again,
this needs breaking news music. John Weeks, the newest signing for the San Francisco 49ers. They got wait, aren't they supposed to be getting younger, Jason?
Right.
They just signed a 39-year-old long snapper.
Brian.
Yeah.
So when the 49ers didn't sign Joey Bosa, when the 49ers didn't sign this player, Dalvin Tomlinson slips through their hands, Jonathan Allen signs that lucrative deal with Minnesota. We as the people that cover the team, we say, okay, these are the available defensive linemen. These are the available edge rushers, you know, and then you let people hash it out. The Tabor Pepper news comes down, and I swear to God, I saw 3 people that were like, these are the available long snappers. And I said, there's no way in the Lord's big year in 2025 that we are worried about a damn long snapper. And this is what I'm talking about. The idea that people know who the available long snappers are, or even know who the other long snappers are in the league, is just now we're way too far in the weeds. We have lost sight of the actual football players. It's just insane to me.
All right. Well, you're going to have to dive into the long snapper film, because at 39 years old, John Weeks isn't going to be the long-term answer there. So we got to find out who that player is going to be.
Probably he's a Pro Bowler.
Maybe one of those comp 7th round picks. John Weeks, more like John Years. Am I right?
Hey, you know what? Look, if we're doing a special teams cleanse by Mitch Wisnowski, we've got our kicker, Pat O'Donnell. We're good here, pal. We're good.
I didn't even think about this. Long snapper in the 3rd.
You guys are sickos.
All right. I think it's time to get out of here. We're talking about long snappers way too much here. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. OT with BP, Jason Aponte, the simulcast here. We're doing it weekly. Love all you guys, and love all the sickos out there. We're going to keep talking NFL draft as we do every single week. Make sure you are subscribed to Overtime, my extra pod when I'm not doing Locked On 49ers, when I'm not doing Peacock and Williamson on the Locked On Podcast Network. And of course, you can find me and Jason at BD Peacock, at Jason Aponte 2103. Subscribe to the Jason Aponte YouTube channel. Find all of his written stuff at Niners Nation as well. Anything else you want to plug before we go, Jason?
Nope. Got my Mac Jones jersey. I'm probably going to sleep in this thing, guys. We are so back. Super Bowl's back on.
The Mac Jones era. It's almost like it's been here all along. Talk to you next time.